Quick turnarounds, injuries, team news, can you update us?
Well, we've got a doubt about Rossignol. We think everybody else is okay. Obviously Chester's over his suspension, so he comes into the equation too. But I would think at this moment in time Rossignol looks a doubt. We'll know a little bit more with Andy Robertson this morning too. He could be okay. So we keep our fingers crossed in that department. And the one thing we want for the new year is, and I'm sure Roberto Martinez is the same, you know, you need to stay injury free if you possibly can. You know, we've been dealt, it's been cruel over the last couple of months in particular, but let's hope we can get a few of them back for the new year.
Picked up a good point earlier on in the season at Everton. Are you surprised that they struggled a little bit late?
I don't think anything surprises me in the Premier League anymore. I think we all understand how difficult it is. Every team have got good players. Every team can pose you a threat. And of course, Everton, with the expectation of what happened last year, it's been a different sort of season for them. I do believe that probably Europe and the demands of what it puts on you, and of course, you know, looking from the outside too, it's that old one where when you seem to be up against it, you have a look at their injury list, and I think theirs is as long as ours. So therein lies a problem. So it doesn't surprise me that with Keith players missing, you usually find the ones that are doing well name the same 14, 15 every week. That seems to be the case, but they've still got some good players. I'm still convinced they'll have a better second half than they probably had for the first half.
You created a handful of chances against Leicester, but how much of a concern in general terms is the home form and the lack of goals?
Well, I think that's the biggest concern of ours is we're form at home, because last year it was so crucial for us, and for what reason it hasn't really gone for us. We've lost, you know, by the odd goal in 4 or 5 games now, where we didn't deserve to lose. Certainly against Leicester, and there's been 2-3 other games. You know, Tottenham springs to mind. There's been a few games at home where it hasn't really gone for us, but we hope, and I'm convinced, that we're going to have a better second half to the season. We need to. We understand that, but there's 3 or 4 points separate 8 teams, so there's all to play for. You know, the last couple of months have been difficult, there's no disputing that, but we must remember that we've had a wonderful 2.5 years, and it's our turn. You know, if we think we're just going to go sailing along and it's all going to go hunky-dory, then we're far mistaken. And I'm not that naive enough to think that, you know, at the moment we're up against it. So the only way you can do it is turn it round, win a few games, starting with the next one, which is Everton, which is never going to be easy, but we'll try our best.
The managerial merry-go-round is in full.
It didn't take you long. I thought that you might have opened with that one, I have to tell you.
Are all Premier League managers fearful for their jobs at this time of year, especially when you have one or two individuals?
Well, I think we all know the industry we're in now. And it's not just the Premier League. I mean, it's took till December to lose a Premier League manager. Usually it's October, November where you see the first casualty. So the one thing you don't want to see is your fellow managers being sacked. But I think we understand the nature of the beast. And I'm sure there's some people now in this city who'll think it's time for my head to roll. You know, we've had a bad couple of months, so the manager's the first target. It's difficult, but that's the way it is these days. Thankfully, I've got a chairman who I'm convinced will stick by it and stick by myself. But I don't think anything surprises us anymore. It's the industry, unfortunately, what we work in, and we know the remit when we take it.
Your name is again being linked with the Newcastle job. How much of a distraction is that?
Well, the one thing all of us don't need is a distraction. And as I've just said, I've had 2.5 wonderful years here, and I'm committed to see, especially with the position of the club's in now, then we certainly don't need that distraction. So I'm fully focused on one thing and one thing only, that is to stay here and try and get us out the trouble that we're in at the moment and get rid of what's happened in the last 8 weeks, if you like. November and December have been totally difficult, there's no disputing that, but I'm determined to see it through and get the club out the position that it's in at the moment.
So would you rule yourself out of the running for Newcastle?
Yeah, I've got a job to do here. I think it would be very difficult for me to uproot, and I don't think that'd be fair on anybody here. So at the moment, all I'm focused on is one thing, which is to try and help the club who I've been with for the last 2.5 years.
The transfer window opens on Saturday. Do you expect to do any business or to do business quickly?
We hope that we can bring 1 or 2 in. I don't think it's necessarily the answer, because it's notoriously difficult in January, but if there's a chance to bring somebody in who will help us and make the difference, then of course we'll be looking like everybody else. So it opens pretty shortly, and but at the moment there's nothing imminent, that's for certain.
End of the year, what are your highlights of 2014?
Well, for a long time in it was a great year. I mean, we secured our place in the Premier League. We got to a cup final where we nearly brought a cup here, and unfortunately towards the end of the year, which is typical of what football is in this league anyway, it's been one of the hardest times for the last couple of months. So all in all though, 2014 I think we'll all remember, as certainly the fans I'm sure of Hull will remember the day out at Wembley, because let's be fair, we hadn't been there before, and how close we were to winning our first chunk of silverware, which will go down as one of the highlights of many a year.
Final one from me. Final day of the year. A lot of the fans will be out tonight celebrating. What's the manager's advice to his players on New Year's Eve?
Well, we know Christmas. We know Christmas is a no-go for a player. You know, they've got to play in front of 30, 40,000 all up and down the country. I have to say, I agree with most managers now. It's ridiculous to ask players to play 3 games, 4 games in a week. I think we seen the other day that, for me, the intensity goes out of the games. You see a lot of tired players. When you get tired players, it often gets you injuries. And the games simply aren't played at the intensity, what makes them the spectacle they're at. A footballer can play every day of the week if he wants. We train every day of the week. But you cannot ask a footballer to play day in and day out with the same intensity. It's certainly not possible. And unfortunately, he'll pick up injuries. So I think they're aware of that. It is a ridiculous time of year, but one that I hope we do change, because if we don't and catch up the rest of Europe, for me, the national team in particular, or the players who are playing in the Premier League, when they go and play in big tournaments, there's none this summer, but when they do play in big tournaments, I can understand now when they get there, they're physically shattered because the Premier League is so demanding.
Steve, I know you've ruled yourself out, but you can understand why people are linking you with Newcastle.
Listen, since I think people know that I'm from Newcastle. I was a Newcastle supporter as a boy. It's been regurgitated since I was 22-year-old playing for Norwich and Gillingham that I was linked with Newcastle. And, you know, it seems every time it rears that, you know, I'm linked with it for that obvious reason. It's very flattering. I'm a Geordie at the end of the day, and I'm a Newcastle fan when I was a boy. That's it though, I've got a job to do here, and it would be wrong for me to think of anything else other than get this club out of the position that we're in at the moment, and that's all I'm focused on. It would be wrong for the speculation to keep carrying on, for the club, the supporters, the players. I'm determined to see this through and make sure that we stay in this Premier League, and build on the good work that we've done over the last 2.5 years.
Do you feel that the tell that to your chairman, or does he know that?
I think he knows me by now. I've had, I think, 3 offers since I've been here, and I've turned them all down. So I think he knows. I think he knows the way I feel. So, and why would I want to leave now? You know, it's not right. So, I hope people respect that.
Just to go back to what you're saying about the Christmas period. Are you calling for? Do you think there should be a winter break, or do you think just a bit of a sort of, yeah?
No, we should have. If we're going to catch up with the rest of Europe, it's like me the other day. I knew Gaston Ramirez, for example, would be physically, but we played so well at Sunderland. I thought, well, I'm going to have to stick with the same team, and of course the kid wanted to play. You could see after 10-15 minutes that, you know, he's finding it a bit of a problem. And I'm sure most managers will say the same thing, unless we take a break. And I'm not just talking about, you know, just so we can have Christmas off, but I do think it would benefit the players, it would refresh the players. To have 2-3 weeks off in the middle of a season, for me, would be the right way. Everybody else does it, but we don't. So I think, you know, just because we're steeped in tradition and everybody likes to get out of Boxing Day, you know, then for me it has to change. Now, you can still play on Boxing Day, but there maybe should be a break now. There should be a break now for 2-3 weeks, as I said, to let people try and recover from what's been a demanding 4 months. Because when you see the statistics of what the players actually run and what the distance they cover, then to ask them to go again within 48 hours is asking for trouble. And
do you actually see the stats drop off in terms of?
Of course, the drop off. Yeah, and I think we've all got the hindsight of now. Sports science is there for everybody to see, and of course, what it does when you're playing tired, you pick up injuries, and that's not great either.
Just to give you Arsene Wenger's yesterday suggested this thing about some sort of review panel for diving incidents.
Well, I think it's very, very difficult for referees when you've got people like Hazard and Willian and people who are really, really genuinely quick and who take you on with a low centre of gravity. A slight little tap can take them over. We see it in rugby. You know, somebody running flat out, somebody takes a tap of their ankles and they go down. You know, it's very, very difficult. But when you see it blatantly dive, then I think we have to take action, because, as I've said repeatedly, for me, the reason why the Barclays Premier League is the league it is for its honesty and integrity and its ferocity, if you like. And we must remember that. People enjoy the honesty of playing and watching the Premier League all over the world. We can't make it like any other league, which seems to happen. You know, it's a different culture. So I think maybe a panel. I'm not too sure of a panel, but we have to start taking action against it.